And we've done Object Zool, Object Zool Land. This one's pretty complete. But we haven't done air or wall or ice. Those three still need to be done. But let's take a look at our test room. And we want to set up the views for this room. I'm going to maximize this. Let's go to the Views tab. We want to check this checkbox, Enable the Use of Views. We want to enable the use of views, and we want to set the view to view 0. And the question is, where do we want the game to start in the room? And the coordinates then would be this. X and Y are left at 0, but then the width and height are changed. For the width, we're saying 512, and the height we're going to say is 300. Let me shut off the grid and see if we see that line. I don't see it yet. You also want to check visible when room starts. And notice how right now the view line is above Zool's head. Now for port on screen, that's this part, we want to set that X and Y to 0, but the width and the height are a little bit different. We're going to set it to 1024, which is a power of 2, and then 600 for the height. So the width is 1024, the height is 600. The next thing you want to do is set the object following, and the object we want to follow with this view is Object Zool. Now remember, all the other Zools are child objects of the Zool object, so we can just say Object Zool, and any flavor of Zool that happens to be on the screen will still have the object following thing still work. Now usually when you're doing object following, you don't want the object to get too close to the edge. You kind of want to center the object that you're following. So we're going to set the horizontal border to 256, so that would be here. And we're going to set the vertical border to 160. We'll set the vertical and horizontal speeds to -1. Okay, so let's try it now, and you'll see that it's changed a lot since the last time we ran the program. So here's Object Zool again, but we've got a much closer view of him. And notice how the view is following him once we get through the edge, at least, of the screen. So we run off screen, and then we're over here on this side. Okay? See how he skids to a stop. Yeah. So that's what the view does for you, object following and having the use of views. Now you have a much closer up view of that. Well, first of all, if you notice when we run the game, Zool gets going pretty fast. I mean, we crash into things, but if you look at the acceleration, he goes so fast, and that's too fast really for the game. So we have to limit his speed a little bit. So the question is, how do we do that? Let's create a couple new constants. So if you go over to Resources and you say Define Constants, we're going to add a few more constants. First one is going to be max H speed. And we're going to set that equal to 14. So 14 pixels per frame. And then we're also going to set the max fall speed. And again, use these names. Don't come up with your own names. We're going to set that to 14 as well. Next, we want to use these constants to control the speed of Zool. So we're going to go into the step event, the step event for object Zool. Guess we don't have one yet. So we're going to add that. So add a step event to object Zool. We go to the control tab and we drag on a variable. And the variable we want to change is vSpeed. And the value we're actually going to call a function on. And the function is the minimum between the max fall speed and the v-speed. And so what that means is it'll take a look at both numbers. The max fall speed is 14. If v-speed happens to be higher than 14, then it's going to go with the max fall speed. So Zool will only fall as fast as 15 frames per, or 15 pixels per frame. Is it relative? No. We also want to do the same thing for the horizontal speed. But horizontal speed is a little bit different because we can go either left or right. So we need a different type of function for that. So let me drag that on and we'll take a look at it. So what's our variable? In this case it's h-speed. And now we want to get the median between these three values. So we say median. It actually has that function in it. And we say negative max h-speed, comma, and then the actual h-speed, whatever the current speed is, and then positive max h-speed as the last parameter, and then closing parenthesis. So what the game will do is it'll take those three values, negative 14, positive 14, and the h-speed, and find the median between them, and it will use that as the new h-speed. Again, this happens every frame. So this is how you can constrain the speed both going left and going right. And again, it's nice to see prepackaged functions. Just imagine if we had to write those functions. Not very much fun. Well, for some people it's fun. So we have to be careful here because if we put any step events in child classes of Object Zool, we'll have to make sure to call the parent one, since we'll be overriding the step event from the parent. Okay, so let's try it and see if it changes anything about the speed of Zool. So it's complaining here because I have a space. GameMaker does not like spaces in between the method or the function and the parameters. So let me fix that first. So I'm getting rid of that. And I'll check the other one too. Looks fine. Try again. Oh, what's the matter? Unknown variable max fall speed. Maybe I misspelled it. It's not really a variable, it's a constant. Yeah, forgot to capitalize it. So GameMaker is case sensitive. Let's try this again. Okay, now you can see he's not moving as fast. Okay, now it's a little bit more manageable and he's not flying across the screen. For vertical speed, we can't really test that yet because we don't know how to jump. So let's learn how to do that next. Okay, so next we're going to do Object Zool Air. And in Object Zool Air, we want to set the gravity to 2. But you remember, gravity, just like normal, is exponential. You go faster and faster and faster. See, if I jumped out of an airplane right now, I would be accelerating towards the ground. I wouldn't keep a constant speed. I'll be going faster and faster from second to second until I reach what? Terminal velocity. The wind pressure only lets me go so fast. So we're trying to simulate that with our max fall speed. You might think of that as terminal velocity. When Zool is in the air state, we are going to need a little bit of gravity to do that. Okay, so let's open up opposite Zool air. Right now that doesn't really have anything in it. So we're going to add a create event. So anytime we go into this state, we're going to hard code it so that it goes, the state method gets set to the jump state. So we say state equals z state jump. And remember, this is the constant we define for this state. We also want to set the gravity. Since we're in the air, we want to set the gravity so he moves downward. The direction is 270. Yeah, that's vertical speed. We want this one, gravity. Direction is 270. And we're going to set it to 1.5 actually. So while he's jumping, the downward force would be 1.5 pixels per step. We want to shut off friction. Because he's in the air, we're no longer on the ground. So here's friction, and we want to set friction to 0. Next, we want to add an end step event. So we go step, end step. Okay, so we want to test a variable. The variable we want to test is the v speed. We'll leave the value at 0, and we'll set the operation to larger than. So when v speed is larger than 0, that means it's not going up, it's going down. Because remember, y is upside down. So if that's the case, then we have a little bit more work to do. So if we know we're falling down instead of jumping up, then we have to change the state to the falling state. So we say state, z state, z-state fall. When we're falling, the gravity's a little bit different. Not sure why they do that, but we set the gravity to 2.0 here. Direction is still down. Now there's some people who are asking me in Game Design 2, is it okay for you to do all the coding in GML? And actually I say, sure, that'd be great. It's a little bit harder, but at least you'll learn the language a little bit better. It's not a requirement on this game, but if you want to give it a try, it would be appreciated. You get extra credit for that, I suppose. Next, we add a collision event. And we want to make it really general. So remember, all the different platforms derive from object solid. So we'll make a collision event between object solid. This is going to be really similar to what we did in Object Zool Land. So let's look at that in Object Zool Land. So we'll copy these, and we're going to put that in Object Zool Air, and just make our changes there. Okay, so the only thing different between the two is instead of setting the horizontal speed to 0, so instead of that, we can get rid of that and instead just stop it from moving completely. Okay. That will stop both vertical movement and horizontal movement. Next, we want to do a check object. So that's new. What are we checking for? We're checking for object platform. So if it's a platform and it's right below us, like 1 pixel below us, that means we're right up next to the platform. Then what we want to do is change Zool into Object Zool Land. So if this is true, we're on the platform, then we want to switch from the falling state to the land state, or the land object actually. Let's do that. So we'll change to that, and make sure to say perform events on that. That's important. Finally, we're going to add a key release event. So we add that event. Key release event. It's important you get the right one. Key release. And we want to get the space. Remember, space is, I guess, is jump. And here we want to set the gravity to So it says this last key release event may seem a bit odd without a corresponding key press event, but the player will already have pressed the space bar in another state object if they are jumping. This key release event sets the gravity back to normal when the player releases the space bar to create a variable height jumping effect we're after. So evidently Zool can jump different heights. It's got a special feature for that. If we try the game now, we'll note that there's a bunch of problems. We're not quite done, because every time we add a new object, we need to be able to draw it. So let's go to the parent then. Remember, it's the parent Zool object that does all the drawing. So we need to go in that draw event and add these new states. So what are the new states? So we have the jumping state. Actually, this should be here. And the variable should be state. So if it's equal to the jumping state, then we want to draw objects will jump right. So I've done it for the right side. Let's do it again for the left side now. So we're going to put that right there. And we'll just change the sprites to left. So one other thing we have to do inside Object Zool is inside the create event, instead of assuming that we're on land, we're going to set its initial state to Object Zool air. So go in there. Now that we have air kind of figured out, we're going to put Object Zool air there. So make sure you do that. That's in the create event of Object Zool. Okay, let's see if Object Zool actually falls down to the ground now. He's been stuck in the air for a while. It actually fell to the ground. Yay. So I can run through the whole level almost. It's a little choppy. But yeah, still pretty good. It'd be nice if we could jump, right? I suppose if we move Zool, it could fall. Now here we need to add the space event, and that space event needs to be an Object Zool land. we'll add a key press event, not a keyboard event, but key press, space. And here what we're going to do is we'll set the vertical speed to -22. So that's this one. And we'll set to -22. Remember, y is upside down, so -22 means to go up 22 pixels per frame. It's then at this point where we change the instance into Object Zool Air. So let's do that. And set perform events equal to yes. Next we add a step end step event. Now remember, this event happens after all the movement and collision of the objects have been resolved, but before the object is drawn. So it's a good place to change the state of an object if it's in a new position, if the new position requires it. So we want to do a check object. That's this one. And the object we're looking for is an object platform. We also want to say not here, say relative, and we want to look under our feet, I think. Yeah, so you would say 1 here. You're looking right below the sprite. If that's the case, so if you're not on the ground, then we want to change ourselves into Object Zool Air. So this is how we switch from land to air. That changes us to air. Perform events, yes. So let's see if Zool can jump around now. That's our goal for today. Yeah, I can jump. So we can explore our level now. Can't climb quite yet. You kind of have to be moving when you jump. These platforms aren't here yet, no. It looks like Zool's working now, okay? So that's where you should be at the end of this video, is to have Zool jumping around.